Hello, welcome to Thursday's Inside News. I'm Dale Matthews, and this fellow purports to be Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hello. Why am I here?
Yeah, Admiral
Is
Stockdale.
that,
Okay,
yeah, right. Yes, that's exactly who I was referring to. Yeah.
yeah, some people will know what we mean.
Yes.
Um, uh, okay, so tonight's show is about abuse of power.
Mm,
Go figure. Technology and
mm,
waste of money. But first, some good news. Uh, we're under a challenge here with this show because the commissioners would really prefer that we stay as far away from hearing what's going on as possible, preferably outside or maybe in another county. They won't let us tie in with their audio systems so that you can hear better. And as I've mentioned in the past, Simon Harris said it doesn't matter whether he means everybody in the audience, because that's one of the people in the audience asked a question. In the little back room, which is a pretty small place, we can't hear you. And he says, it doesn't matter whether you can hear us. It only matters if the other commissioners can hear me.
mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay. So,
Which they barely can most of the time.
and they sometimes they'll say, "What was that? What was that?" And there's even staff people in the audience who are leaning forward and they can't hear what's happening.
He's a low talker.
Yeah, yeah. Well, forget about the way he was raised. But look, in this particular case, we have actually shown up. I mean, I was grateful for the loan, but it was really ridiculous to be sitting in a tiny room like that with a football style parabolic reflector trying to catch what they were saying.
Yes, it did
And
work.
the thing is so sensitive that if you moved it slightly, you could hear Simon, but not Cheryl at all, and they're just on it.
Yeah, it's a little bit too discriminating. And the problem is that you almost need to run something like that through an equalizer so you can take out the undesirable frequencies, because otherwise you get a lot of super high tones, scratchy sort of stuff. It was good for volume. And I know that they make other parabolic microphones that are much more discriminatory and have a lot less noise with them. But you're also going to pay $1,500 for the thing.
No, we can't afford to do that. We're doing this out of our pocket, and I don't have two nickels to rub together. But Mike has come up with some ways. We've got some people out there who really like us, and they'll occasionally loan us some equipment and this kind of stuff. You guys are doing a good job. Well, okay, we got them fooled. And then Mike will just coax this equipment into doing things that it's really not meant to do, but we're doing it. Nobody's supposed to be doing a daily show on Google Hangouts. Mike?
Well, and I'm amazed at what I've been able to find when I'm looking around for stuff. Originally, when I wanted to be able to set up Dale so that he could play video there, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to jump through some pretty hefty hoops here, and there's going to be some other equipment involved, because at my house, I'm running the stuff through an audio mixer, and there's a bit more equipment involved. And I know Dale doesn't even have room for this stuff. Okay, but we discovered a piece of software which does a lot of this work for us, and we're able to bring in audio and video live from another computer, which is an amazing thing. And so that we're going to see some of that today.
So I've got one computer here that's broadcasting to another computer, and then we're picking up from that computer and putting it out to you. I'm going to share that with you for the very first time tonight. This is the place where I spend my entire day. I go to meetings, long, blathery meetings, and then I come back and I put the video on this little video editor. Oh, it's highly edited. No, it's not. I just try to brighten it up just a little bit. I try to make it a little bit sharper. It's high definition in the first place. And then, as you can see on the colorful parts down near the bottom of the screen, I sometimes will cut it up so that we can go from one statement to the next and let the person have their say. And I try to make it a little bit louder, because we're sitting so far away that now, due to Cheryl and Simon and Keith, that it's sometimes very difficult to hear people. So I go through all kinds of stuff to make it just sharp enough so that you can hear what they're saying, which is the most important thing. So you're looking at what's called the timeline of this. Now, here is the really amazing part. This fellow is Quentin Chard, and for the very first time on this show, or well, almost anywhere that I know, Quentin Chard is going to talk to you from the timeline, from last night's meeting, all through the magic of low-cost television. Quentin, speak up there, buddy. Here we go.
Yes, I see. It's worth every penny.
I'm from the county.
Please, would you repeat that?
Clinton Chard.
Chard, thank you.
I'm going to read a letter from Kim Ramsey addressed to you. Dear Commissioners, I am writing.
Okay, just a second. One other thing is, this is a little bit of an experiment. When you look down at the bottom, this is a little tech talk. You can see there's a section that's highlighted. It's kind of darker gray. This was not set up perfectly. So he's going to jerk around a little bit. He doesn't in real life. And his voice may not be perfectly in synchronization with everything he's saying, but you will see that's him. That's really what he's saying. And then the rest of it, it has a green bar across the top that you may just be able to see. And that is stuff that's perfectly rendered and ready to go. This one is not. I wanted to see what would happen if it wasn't quite perfect. Here we go. Quentin, you can continue now, bud.
I'm to you to offer some clarification regarding the bidding process for the Fielder Dam project. On October 22nd at approximately 3 p.m., Nielsen Research Corporation received a request for proposals from Josephine County Public Health Department. Please reference the PDF document named, quote, RFP sent to Nielsen and unquote. This is the 1.5-page document that we received. I also attached copies of actual bid documents that laboratories normally receive. As you can see, this RFP was very vague and not a typical laboratory document. The deadline for this proposal was Tuesday, October 27, 2015 at 5 p.m. We were only given 3 business days to conduct an entire habitat survey and create a list of chemicals and materials to be sampled and analyzed. Eric Schaffson was given 43 days and was allowed to create his own proposal based on his own study. Grants Pass Water Lab is not certified for sediment analysis, so the data that was initially gathered is not legally defensible. Here are some of the items in the RFP that need your attention. General information and scope of work. Specify certified water laboratories to monitor the effects of the removal of Fielder Dam at Evans Creek. To monitor the effects of the removal of a dam, the county should have requested this from a certified hydrologist, which is by definition the science dealing with the occurrence, circulation, distribution, and properties of the waters of the earth and its atmospheres. Or a registered geologist, which is by definition a person who specializes in geologic research and study. A water laboratory by definition is a building, part of a building, or other place equipped to conduct scientific tests on water. That being said, how would a certified water laboratory have the capabilities and certifications to conduct a habitat survey? This document also specified certified. However, the laboratory that was chosen to conduct such a survey does not have a certified hydrologist or geologist on staff and was not certified for sediment or water under the Clean Water Act. Submission of proposals. Item number 3, list of chemicals and materials to be sampled and analyzed. Laboratories do not create this list. They are given this list by certified hydrologist or certified geologist. Item number 4, whether the proposer has conducted any initial testing of the former Fielder Dam site or other dam removal sites. This appears to be written for Eric. However, Nielsen Research was the laboratory that has worked with most of the environmental firms on these types of projects because we are certified for sediment. Thank you for your time. I hope this adds some clarification about the bidding processes for laboratories. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact Kimberly Ramsey, Vice President of Nielsen Research Corporation. I'd like to submit this for your documents.
Give it to the secretary, please.
Okay. So I'm trying desperately to jump from one screen to another screen here. I will get there sooner or later. Here we go.
Yes.
Got to grab the other mouse. Okay, so as you can see, that video was bringing the other computer to its knees. A guy kind of stopped, but let's talk about the content, which is more important than the technology here for us. Mike, you heard a number of things there that you've heard before. Do you want to take the first crack at telling people what the heck it is that he's talking about?
Well, I think most people are familiar with if they've seen some of the previous shows that we did about this topic, that and what he is bringing some light to is the fact that the Grants Pass Water Lab is not exactly qualified in the best to be doing this study, and also it just seems that they got preferential treatment, and so you have to wonder where that's coming from and who knew what when. In terms of, did they send the thing out to him or they had the meeting with him and then sometime later, a few days before the deadline, they sent it out to these other people just so that they could say that they did this stuff. The whole thing is a little bit fishy there. You have to question that regardless of whether you already suspect these people to be kind of, cheesy in their methods. So I believe that this is, there's some there.
Yeah, that's a good summary. It is about the way in which these outgoing commissioners have been handing out contracts. This outfit, according to the stats that we have, the documentation that we have, got 43 days, 42 days, 43 days to come up with a plan, and the potential competitors had 3. And they looked at this and they said, this can't be done in that amount of time.
Yes, of course. And I'm wondering, still trying to put together, and we may never learn just because, we don't get to reside behind the eyeballs of the people that we're talking about here. What is the quid pro quo here? Why would the sitting commissioners care a lick about giving some preferential treatment to Eric Shaftsma, especially Cheryl Walker, who's not a Republican by any stretch of the imagination.
He says that because Eric Shaftsma is the vice chair of the Republican Party, which is obviously the biggest party in Josephine County. Is there some kind of quid pro quo beyond, Cheryl and her legacy?
Yeah, and that may be it. Right there. That may be the thing that was attractive to her, is she visualized herself in this position of saving Josephine County from the scourge of the poisonous river which runs through its heart. You have to believe there has to be something in it for these people. They're not just trying to do a good job. They're trying to polish their own apple.
Is there a poisonous river that runs through the heart of our county? We'll find out in May. All right, so here is, thank you very much for laughing, Mike. Here is the next part of our timeline. We're still doing this the first time we've ever done it, so we'll see if we can get synchronization this time.
Well,
or maybe
there's only one other thing that I would recommend, and here's some tech talk, is that next time when you're setting up the remote desktop in there, watch as you're putting it in and set the frame rate to 30. I think its default is 15, and we may be getting that at this point.
Okay, here we go. Here's the next part from the timeline.
Lori Johansson, Jerome Prairie. Vic Lacudian and Mark Collier and myself met with Diane Hoover, the director of health for the county, and also reviewed various documents that have been released, limited number of that have been actually made public.
I'm still seeing you, Dale.
What I found out was that the Oregon oncologist presented results to Diane Hoover on the 23rd of November, stating that there was no toxic materials involved at all in the Fielder Dam area. Furthermore, this is on top of the report that was created by Water Watch and sent to the Army Corps of Engineers, and 6 months before the dam was even removed, which was back in November of 2014. They both say that there was no toxic materials. This is in direct contradiction with the statements that Eric Shaftsma made. regarding aluminum being a hazard, iron being a hazard, and arsenic. So we have a very clear record of a contradiction between two respected authorities and the statements, the alarmist statements of Eric Shaxma. I was fortunate that Dale Matthews was able to record that in an executive session, otherwise we wouldn't have had a public record of the statements that Eric Shaxma had made. Diane Hoover was relying on Eric Shaxma in accordance with Section 8 of the contract, which says the county has relied on the professional ability, qualifications, and training of consultants as a material inducement to enter into this contract. Thus, from the start, that for the reason that you even went into the contract in the first place, it was based on representations from Eric Shaxma. Diane Hoover, in the commissioners' meeting on the 4th of November, stated, "Obviously, Eric wrote this. He has a much higher level of education than I do. He uses big words. She actually has a PhD, but it's in philosophy. So when it came to science, she was relying on him, just as it said in the contract." So I just wanted to make clear that the county was relying on the statements of Eric Shaxma, even though now the toxicologist has come forward and said there was nothing there. And that agrees with the Water Watch report that was accepted by the Army Corps of Engineers, saying there was nothing there. There's a problem with that whole bidding process. Eric Shaxma had from the 25th of August to the 22nd of October to prepare a bid, while the other businesses had only 3 business days. Plus, the RFQ, as you heard testified earlier, was vague and would require a great deal of discussion in order to find out what was actually being asked for. At the same time, a public panel.
Thank you, Ms. Johansson.
Yes, and the only criticism I have there is that she was under the impression that that happened in executive session. It did not. If it did, we would have no record of that. But they typically wouldn't hold that kind of an interview in executive session, as I understand it.
They can sometimes. Sometimes they can, because it's contract negotiations.
Okay.
And they've decided that they used to also, if somebody was applying for a job, everybody could see that person. Now they've decided that has to be top secret. Why? It never has been in the history of Josephine County that I know of, but with the introduction of Simon Hare and then doubled down with Cheryl Walker, they decided they're not going to allow that. They were sometimes with Simon and now all the time with Cheryl, and then Keith just followed what Cheryl was doing. But she's right, it wasn't an executive session and we wouldn't know about it. It's true. You would not know this was happening if I hadn't been sitting through these long blathering meetings telling you some of the highlights. That's right.
Yeah, and one other thing is that, Lori, do not pay attention to the beeper. Only use that as a marker for giving you the wrap it up signal. Don't stop when the buzzer goes off, because you can go ahead and finish your thought, and no one will object. And but that's it. I mean, the rest of that is good, solid information that we all need to understand what happened here more completely.
Well, the most important part to me is it was said by Eric Shaxma, reiterated by the county's health director, and also confirmed by Cheryl Walker, that there was no baseline study done by the city of Grants Pass, no baseline study of where we are now, none. That didn't make any sense to anybody. That was logical. The health director, really? Also, this is as I recall what she said. Also, it was clearly stated that there was no investigation, there was no environmental impact statement. The state, the federal government didn't look into this at all. They just took down the dam. You really think so? As I said last night, you can't walk across a river with rubber boots without filing an environmental impact statement. It's a little bit of exaggeration, but not much. And nobody did anything about taking down a dam. Nothing.
Yeah. Yes, of course they did. And yeah. Listen, it's. I think there was a stink too about when Savage Rapids Dam came out, but the same review process had to take place there. Now, listen, I got to tell you something. I'm not in favor of taking out every dam in the place here. I think there's a lot of, if there's an issue where, the fish ladder is not operating, is not operating, is not giving the effect that is needed, then fix the fish ladder, for crying out loud. We're giving up all these hydroelectric dams, and it's ultimately going to cost people more money and cost agriculture the ability to have easy access to water. I don't agree with pulling all these dams out. And, it destroyed the value of people who lived in the lake portion there and had waterfront homes done. Now they just, live in the proximity of the river there. It's not nearly as cool. But anyway, regardless how you feel about that, we know that in this environment now, you can't get anything done. You can't even dig a hole on your property without jumping through a bunch of hoops.
So why is the water expert telling us that none of that was done?
Because he wanted to get the job. I mean, you know what? I mean, here's the problem with saying something like that is that can be checked on. Why
would they do this, Mike? Why would they do it?
I don't know. Well, you know what? I think they have a lot of faith in the incompetence of the people in City Hall and government officials here in general. They just know that these people, either you have to believe that, and that's being charitable to them, because if you don't believe that, you have to believe that that they didn't know. They were too stupid to understand it. And so, yeah.
Well, as I said last night, you can kind of understand where maybe we, as the public in general, don't know. We certainly don't know everything. We prove that every night here. Okay. And it's certainly possible that the commissioners who hold the purse strings, we gave them that power. Hey, that's partly our responsibility. We can do something about that, but we gave them the power, and then maybe they don't know everything. Then you get down to the health director. She's paid to know these things and to know what's done or not done. And then you get down to the specialist, the guy that has the company that does nothing more, I understand, than water stuff. And those two are telling us, as these experts, that, oh no, this has to be done because nobody else did it. And then it turns out, yes, they did. Now, wait a minute. If we're going to rely on those guys, it's similar to the commissioners and the secret sessions that they have. If we're going to give them the ability, give them the benefit of the doubt, then don't lie to us. Well, here's a little bit more from the timeline. I made the picture a little bit bigger, so I think you'll like this better. We'll see. Okay, then I got to jump over to this computer. Here we go.
Viken Nakudian, Grants Pass. I became aware of this whole scare about the toxins in the water from Fielder Dam from Facebook posts. It was sort of an orchestrated effort by Mr. Joseph Rice of the local Oath Keepers and PPN. And, Mr. Rice was making a lot of claims that were clearly false, and we were able to counter some of those, making false statements that public information showed were false, but it was orchestrated to generate concern. And Ms. Diane Hoover did let us know that, wow, these concerned citizens were calling her, and this is why it became a crisis that she brought to you guys, because it had to be responded to, because, wow, people were concerned. You see, all of that was well orchestrated. It wasn't because of something that was ever actually behind Fielder Dam, as the Army Corps of Engineers confirmed, and state toxicologist. It was a campaign of, I would call it manipulation of perceptions, a manufactured sense of crisis. And there was a huge cash prize at the end of it, of course. So I and other people began speaking up and pointing out where these false statements were being made, and then I began experiencing a series of threats directly from Mr. Joseph Rice.
What?
The most egregious of them, I'd say, is that right after the Umpqua school shooting, Mr. Rice took advantage of the heightened sense of alarm and concern.
Can we ask him to avoid the names?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Heck, that's okay. There's others that say similar things. So
Yes.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on here a second. Something's a little bit fishy with that. Do you remember, anybody remember the videos where you can't talk about county employees or about anyone else unless they're in the room? Now Cheryl is running for office. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. People do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of Cheryl's new charm offensive. I find it offensive. It makes it look, oh, don't worry about that, Mr. Heck. Why? People should get a chance to say what they want to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the video of her saying, you can't say anything at any time by anyone. She even said, you should not be saying these things out in the general public when you're walking around.
Yeah. Of course, and they have no jurisdiction outside of that room, quite frankly.
No, but now she's saying, oh, yeah, well, that's just that old Keith Heck, he just doesn't want to let people speak. Okay, go back.
Well, and here, let's just be completely fair here. There is an ongoing dispute between Joseph Rice and Viken Nakodian, and some of that is coloring the commentary here. There isn't any question about that. But I believe that there is something to the Joseph Rice's involvement in this situation with Eric Shaftsma. I mean, it just seems a little bit too obvious, and so that may be some of the reason why Joseph has pulled Viken aside and is talking to him about speaking out.
I saw Joseph Rice today, and he comes up to me and said, so, anything at all interesting happened in last night's weekly business session?
Wow, I'm surprised.
He doesn't know?
Yeah, I'm surprised he was no. So did you say no? Nothing at all happened.
That's basically what I said. Oh, well, it depends on your point of view. Yeah. Come on. So he plays it real soft with me.
Well, and listen, you know what? There are two ways that this situation could be. Either he is just overly reactive citizen who gets on Facebook and is making a big stink about this thing. Everybody has a pet issue on Facebook for some odd reason.
His is water.
Yeah, and it seems to be that way. Or he felt so strongly about that he needed to contact the health director and then start talking about Viken, which he has this ongoing dispute with. So, this really goes, you can't tell where to put this whole deal. Yeah, it's not really good. The appearance of it is really good. I've said to both of these guys, if you want to put your dispute on the back burner, put your dispute on the back burner, and then the rest of this.
Obviously, don't want to.
Yeah, and then and then we'll all know that now what we're dealing with is only about this instead of about the other thing too. So, yes, it's fishy, and once again, here we are speculating. We don't know what.
Well, I would submit to you, sir, that if you only look at the face value of things, just nothing but what you might hear on KJO, you're not going to know any of the real reasons behind things.
Oh, that's for sure.
And that's what we don't talk so much about rumor, although those do come up. But if there's something going on in the Ann Basker in the back of the room, I think that's fair game to talk about it. And the whole idea, well, the commissioners would like us to stop, don't even mention people by name.
Mhm.
That's way too far. Okay. You just,
Well,
there's a general problem in our county, but I can't tell you where it's, come on.
And it should be clear that there is at least some sort of a relationship between Joseph Rice and Keith Heck.
Yes, that's right. And with the previous sheriff, because we've shown you the picture. There's you know,
Yeah,
massage-
which has nothing to do with this right now, but you know.
No, but there are connections, and if you don't it's like the TV guy that said to me, well, I saw that videotape, and who is it that's sitting there and talking about the Merlin Fire guys? And I said, well, that guy is now on this board, but he used to be in one of the principals at the company that is competing with them. Oh, see, once you know some of that stuff, then you go, that's what's going on here. Well,
Yeah.
we didn't get it signed in blood, but that probably was what was going on there. And if we don't tell you about that, then sorry, but you're not going to know what's happening.
Right. And you know what, the layout of this particular story, which is, listen, you know what, this is not just a personal, issue here. This has to do with, a contract that could have cost the county $600,000 over 5 years. So, I think airing all aspects of that is really fair game. And so we can all know who the players are and so we can all watch and try and keep score and, keep some sort of record here.
Otherwise, we'll never know why things are happening. We'll never know, which one reason why, you don't need to mention anybody by name. Yeah, we know what you'd prefer, that people don't know what's actually happening. There's a whole layer to this that will explain all of this stuff if you ever get a chance to hear it. And there's just, sorry, just one goofy place where you can hear all that. That's here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not always goofy. All right, we're going to go back to Vikin. And don't forget that he and Lori were the only two people at the beginning who stepped forward and said, no, wait. We have proof that something's not right about this. This is the guy. So even if he's got a personal axe to grind, we should thank him for stepping forward and actually doing the test and then taking them to a certified water lab who says, hey, you need to be actually certified to do this. So, well.
Listen, there is no question that them coming forward and doing this has saved the county a lot of money. And our commissioners didn't care enough to get this kind of verification on their own. And these people stepped forward. So regardless of what you think of them personally, they just saved you from having to pay your portion of that $600,000. So
and took a major legacy, a major kudo, a major selling point for Cheryl Walker and Keith Heck. Because they were the two that were pushing for this. It was Simon Hare that was pushing against it.
Right.
Took a major thing away from them, which may end up, certainly won't help them get elected, will it? So this is the guy. All right. So we're going to go back to him and let him speak a little bit more. And I try to move quickly on this. I'm not quite used to moving quickly on these two.
Let him finish.
Well, this one person sent an email to Ms. Hoover and to law enforcement agencies claiming that I was a threat to other people, that I was, potentially a homicidal maniac, and that I was observed looking at guns at a gun show and they needed to do something about me. That's the sort of thing that leads to a SWAT team raiding a guy's house, which leads to people getting killed because they don't know why their door is getting kicked in. Mr. Rice, this person, what he actually literally did is move an attempt on my safety, at least,
with Diane Hoover,
taking advantage of a situation that he thought he could leverage. And that wasn't the only threat that was made against me. There have been others. That failed, of course. They sort of blew him off. And then about 10 days later, this really interesting letter was sent that arrived at my house, which threatens not only me, but my mother, should I continue speaking about these Oath Keepers. I'm perturbed. I'm perturbed not only at the manufactured crisis. You guys were not at fault. I think you were not at fault for the whole Fielder Dam, splurge. You were pushed into this. It was a very carefully orchestrated scenario. And to keep it going and to prevent truth from stopping it, threats against myself and other people have been made. And this is a serious matter. I mean, the one contacting the police and trying to get me swatted, that's a criminal offense. And that's how far somebody's willing to go to get that cash prize. Interesting. I'd like to submit this for your records.
Please, thank you.
Now, we're getting all those documents from these guys. And if there's additional details beyond what you're hearing now, of course, we will share them with you. Now, I have my own personal experience with this kind of stuff too. And we've had some very odd people contact us. Talk to us. I mean, I had a guy call me. He says, "I got a lot of information for you that's going to help you figure out what's going on behind the scenes." I'm like, "Okay." And he says, and he called me a couple of times. He says, "I've got this information. Boy, it's going to blow the lid off of various things. I can't tell you what yet." And I'm going, "All right, well, this happens occasionally." And they either get cold feet, or they send something, or I just never hear from him again. So the guy calls me back about the fourth time, and he says, "Now I'm about to send you something." I said, "Well, that's good." He says, "By the way, it would really help if you'd lay off Diane Hoover." What? What? That doesn't make any sense. Where's the connection? Yeah, well, she's doing a really good job out there, and she can't continue doing that great job if you are criticized. I said, "I haven't said anything about her in a long time." And what relationship is that to this? And I said, "I tell you what, you just go ahead and send me a tiny story, a small story. If it checks out, we'll run it, and then we'll establish a relationship from there." And he said, "Well, just don't forget, lay off Diane Hoover, the health director." What? Really?
Yeah, that's bizarre. That's really bizarre.
It's not the only bizarre thing that's happened to us, and little by little we'll tell you about it. But it's,
you know what I mean. This odd that this kind of stuff goes on. Listen, you know what? There should not be one person so deeply invested in what's going on inside local government to be making threats in any way at all. And if they are, these people are criminals. Okay. Yeah. You don't do that sort of thing. I don't care who you are. If you end up calling my house and making a threat like that, this is not good for you. Okay. If people, who are friends of people in local government start calling up, myself or Dale and making threats or trying to coerce us into favorable coverage for their friends, come on, get real.
And listen, when was the last time that, forget about KJO, but when was the last time you saw in the Daily Courier, so-and-so called and made a threat, about somebody that was protesting about the waste of money? You just don't hear that. It just doesn't happen. It's got to be like the person's now dead and they're looking at it afterwards. It's not going to happen. We tell you when this, and they just have a cow. I was just reading a list of fellow investors with Simon and Cheryl in their hemp farm, just reading the names. I wasn't saying, "and this stupid person," no, I wasn't. I was just reading the names. Keith X stopped me. "You can't say that. You got to sit down right now. You're jumping on them." I'm just reading the names. "I'm not going to allow you to do that." This is just their names.
Yeah.
You're not going to know what's happening here, and somebody doesn't tell you.
You know what? And, if you're a county commissioner and you're threatened by people speaking what, the truth about anything that's going on in the county, and you're somehow then going to use your position to try and shut somebody down from speaking. Wow. I mean, we don't have an impeachment process. We have to go all the way through a recall election for crying out loud. I mean,
that just happened to me with the mayor. It was just last week. I was going through the speech and I was talking about a variety of things. And I mentioned that Dan DeYoung, as the council president, is probably going to run for commissioner. It's true. He probably is. And the mayor said, "That's a personal attack." How is this a personal attack? I didn't say, it wasn't like that. It was just, he's going to do this. It's a personal attack, and so you got to sit down right now. Your time is up. Your time is up. And, you've got other city councilors sitting there. Do they think did he? He didn't think it was a personal attack. Nobody in their right mind would think it was a personal attack to put in the idea that this guy's, because I was talking about other candidates and who's going to run. It was a personal attack. No, it's not. Mentioning somebody's name unless you say, here is now a list of pedophiles. No, that wasn't anything like that. So these guys are super sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they so sensitive, Mike? What are they afraid of? Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that one is pretty obvious. I think that if you're doing something that you know is questionable, you're going to be resistant to people talking about it. I mean, there's no other reason that you would have an issue, because otherwise you would just go, I don't know, just let him ramble on for his 3 minutes. Who cares? But if you have some sort of objection,
where if you mention 4 people, just mention their names. You walk up, you start mentioning their names. They're going to know what list you're reading from, and they're not going to like to hear it. Just their names, not even what their association is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what the next person had to say. We'll play as much of this as we have time for. Here's the next one. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, this is taking too long. I got to speed this up.
Mark Collier, Joseph County. So this whole Fielder Dam thing is such a mess that one person can't cover it. We've had 3 people work together and go and meet Diane Hoover, and we've done a lot of work, and there's a lot more still to be done. And it's not going to get any better or clearer. I can tell you that every question I asked today, I've already got the answer to. The 2014 Army Corps of Engineers study clearly said that these dams were previously looked at, including the Fielder Dam. And you can't print the darn thing, but I can show you that, locked up. All the other dams that fed the Rogue River and its watershed were looked at, and the sediments and the water quality were not deemed to be a sufficient level that would require a 6-figure contract as this one did. We watched the entire Dale's presentation with Eric Shaftsma and Diane Hoover, and the level of heightened awareness based on arsenic and aluminum and iron, and it just wasn't there. There's no there. It's only 14 pages long. Army Corps of Engineers study clearly said that there wasn't requirements for further study. And I don't understand why you didn't ask the same question when other dams were removed and let this contract go. You were bullied into it, and we're going to show that you're bullied into it. And if you can't get to the same place that we are, we've requested documents from legal. I'll submit a request for more documents from legal that we believe that there might be a higher level. We do see, and it is on a matter of county record, that on videotape that Mr. Nakudian was approached by Mr. Rice in the back of the room. You can clearly see through the gestures, and he tried to get away from him, and Mr. Rice did approach him. And I got his name. I've seen this. I've read the Facebook comments. I've heard it, and I'm absolutely convinced that you've got one person attempting to bully another one and telling them that if you testify, I'll bring legal action against you. I don't think that's where we want to go with this contract. I don't think it's where you want to end up. The billing started before the contractor was awarded, and the billing exceeded the 30-day cycle after it was supposed to have been concluded. We have that entire thing documented front to back. I can't even cover it all in 3 minutes. It's just so ridiculous that you didn't have the collective level, Ms. Hoover didn't have the collective level of information to make a contractable decision. Legal abdicated himself, he recused himself to somewhere lower on down the food chain and said, let's go ahead and make the thing, let a refresh RFQ go out there that was so vague that no one could figure it out in 72 hours, but Mr. Shaftsma has 43 days. And he's referring to people in his previous testimony last month, he comes out with a word calling someone a shill. From a high-ranking member of the Republican Party who was just awarded $77,000 for work, or will be, or might be, but shouldn't be awarded a $77,000 contract, that money that does not belong to him and should not go to him. So I'll give you what I got. And come back.
Well, you know what's interesting here, Dale, is that what he's saying there, he was letting them off the hook, but there is one thing that you just can't get off the hook here, and that is that Eric Shaftsma had 43 days and everybody else had 3.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's a very, very difficult one to get by. How does the county, how do the people at the county account for the fact that this guy had 43 days and the other people had 3? Was there a problem with the mail delivery? What was there an issue where, you know, someone in the office didn't mail stuff out soon enough? And if they're aware of any of these problems, then their contract, you know, a procedure for bidding is flawed, because if you realize that you've essentially screwed over the majority of other bidders besides one, then what you need to do is tell the one bidder, hey, listen, we need to go a little bit longer because we made a mistake that resulted in these other potential bidders not having enough time. And
well, let's look at the other end. The other end, it says that he's supposed to submit the bill after he's given us the report.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he had a subcontractor. The subcontractor kept working after the contract was killed off. This is what we've been told. Kept working because the subcontractor was not told to stop. Oh, really? Now, the work kept going from the documents that we have for 30 days, 33 days after the contract was cut off. And we are being charged by coincidence for a little over 30 days of work. And that's $77,000. In addition to that, the meeting I went to just a week ago today, Simon Hare says, well, you know, I haven't even seen the results. And the finance director says, well, I've already cut the check. You've already cut the check? This is something that nobody knew. He's already cut the check. And Simon is saying, no, wait a minute. I haven't, and Keith is like, blah, blah, and then Cheryl's like, well, I don't think you'd really understand the report, you know, because it's pretty technical. So she's seen the report, but Simon hasn't. And who is the liaison to finance? Cheryl Walker. They've already cut the check, Mike.
Well, yes, but you know, once again, these people apparently can't be trusted to maintain a timeline, and you know, when they're going into you know, a meeting session, they apparently can't abide a checklist, and when they're going into executive session, they can't abide a checklist to make sure that they're in compliance with everything they're doing. This should be, you know, standard procedure. So, and additionally, in this particular situation where, you know, there's terms of a contract, and, you know, this is somewhat controversial, this particular contract, wouldn't you want to take a little bit of extra care in that case to make sure that you were abiding by the terms of the contract, and that the other party needed to abide by the terms of the contract, and that is deliver a report, and then within the next 20 days, or up to 20 days, we can cut you a check after that.
And that's after the controversy. That's not before the controversy. Yeah. It's afterwards, after they got their head handed to them and there's no arsenic. Okay, then the next morning, it wasn't even 24 hours later, they cut the whole thing off. And now they're given this bill without the goods. Okay, I'm billing you now. I'll give you the goods later. And then, okay, cut the check. Hey, wait a minute. Well, we got to get the money to him real quick here, because, you know, what could possibly happen with public opinion? Maybe he'll never get the check. That's a possibility. Oh, well, we'll get him the check now then. No, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as though these county commissioners and others involved in that in this scenario that we're talking about are not taking their jobs seriously.
Or maybe they have a job that they're not telling us about.
Well, you know, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, I don't think they've earned that. Okay, but we hope that we've earned our pay, and we're worth every penny, buddy. This show is to you.
Yes.
We're hoping we earned our pay with you this evening. This is about wastewater, waste and water. And we will we'll continue watching these characters, letting you know what they're really doing, and they'll continue spitting at us. Thank you.